can create value across multiple different sectors and across multiple different countries. And what does that require? It requires each individual to play their part. And more so than that is also for us to be able to collaborate to make sure that we are maximizing the value that exists amongst us.
A lot of people founders here and a lot of developers here can attest that sometimes we build MVPs for even 4 months and 6 months, only to put it in the market and realize it's not going to work. People don't like it. It can't do anything. And then you have to build again for 6 months. Before you know it, that's 1 year.
The best gift you can give to a human being is a chance.
Yeah, exactly. A child that does not cry will die in the carrier.
There are too many problems in the world for us not to be the solutions to them. There are too many of us pointing fingers, looking for other people to solve for things that we know innately we have a piece of the puzzle for.
Think about the failures you've had in your life. Don't you learn more from failure than you do from success? I have.
Absolutely, that's where the biggest lessons are.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome to the Impact Masters podcast. I'm your host, Michael Kimathi. Here, we focus on the tech ecosystem. By creating and sharing knowledge, we tell authentic stories, preserving history, embracing innovation, and pointing out with actionable steps. This episode is also part of Africa's Talking Retold podcasts, powered by Africa's Talking, Africa's communication platform as a service and developer platform. Today, I'm joined by Steven Puri, founder and CEO of Sukha company. Steven's journey spans IBM engineering, Oscar-winning visual effects on Independence Day, and work on iconic franchises like 24, one of my favorite series by Jack Bauer as the actor, and Wolverine, all of you know it, at the 20th Century Fox. And it's an amazing to really see Impact Masters come the full circle in ensuring that you're showcasing all the movers and shakers in the world. And I hope you're joining us today and meeting our guests, the man of the hour, Steven Puri. I don't know if I'm saying it right.
You are saying it right. That is a very generous introduction. I hope that those who are listening, playing along at home or in the car, that this is both entertaining and actionable, has some helpful things on the journey of being a tech entrepreneur.
That's my hope too. And I can't wait to have this conversation. It was supposed to happen some time back, and then some emergency happened and didn't happen. But all in all, happy to have you here, Steven.
We are here.
Yeah, for sure. And it's an honor. So one of the key things that I like talking to my guests about is just to get a bit of background, because we believe this background for most of our decision in life, either career or personal, just to understand. So you began broadcasting before engineering at IBM, but of course there's a Steven who before engineering and movies and,
Do you want me to? I can explain the career circle if you'd like.
Please take some time and tell us.
Okay.
Yes.
Here's the reason to listen to this episode. I'm one of the few people you'll meet who started out as a software engineer. And the reason for that is my parents were both engineers at IBM. My mom was a software engineer. My dad was a hardware engineer designing logic chips, CPUs, right? So you know how it is. Your mom's a great ice skater. You probably learned to ice skate when you're a kid, right? So I was a Watson Scholar at IBM. And when I went off to the University of Southern California in Los Angeles, I had the right through the scholarship to have a job at IBM to make money whenever I wanted. So I worked as a junior engineer during school to make money for school. Here's where the first big twist happens, right? I'm in Los Angeles, going to one of the best cinema TV schools in the world. I was not in this cinema TV school, though. A lot of my friends were in my dorm, and I happened to be there when computers got powerful enough to manipulate film. So it was the rise of silicon graphics and all the CG effects that suddenly, came up. It was the rise of the non-linear editing systems like Avid, Pro Tools for sound, all these things that suddenly became available because film went digital. And I happened to speak both. I was very lucky. I could speak engineer because I was a software engineer, but I could speak creative because a lot of my friends in university were in the film school. So my career took off. This is luck. Let us just underline that word right now, okay? I want to acknowledge my career has gone well because there have been a number of fortunate things that have happened. And I'd like to believe I worked very hard after they happened. But this was a big one, right? So there I am in Los Angeles. There's a demand now for people who can speak engineer and speak creative. I started doing digital visual effects. And that is where I worked on Seven and True Lies and Carlito's Way and a bunch of movies, did Braveheart, as you mentioned. And I produced the digital effects for Independence Day. We won the Academy Award for the visual effects in that movie, which is amazing. I mean, there are 1,000 people contributed. It is a team effort to do something that large, right? And I'm very proud to be part of that team. And Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin, the director, writer, producers, we became close, the three of us. And we started a company at the end of that movie to continue to do digital effects. So that was my first tech company. And we raised about 15 million US, which, when you have an Academy Award on the last movie you did, is not that hard because everyone thinks you know what you're doing, right? So we did that, built the company up while I was in my 20s. After 4 years, we got an offer from Das Werk, which is a big German media conglomerate, right? They bought us out. It was about a 6x return for myself and our investors, which was great. And at the end of my 20s, I thought, oh, wow, I've already sold a tech company that I built, right? I've, worked on these Academy Award winning movies, thinking I'm very smart and being very smug. And I thought, what do I want to do next? So I took 2 years off from 28 to 30. I just traveled. My girlfriend worked for Air France, so we saw the world. And I thought about what did I want to do with my life when I become a grown-up? And I thought to myself, you know what? I've spent a lot of time doing the digital parts of someone else's movie. Wouldn't it be interesting to actually get a movie going of my own? So I started working my way up the ladder as a studio executive and producer, which is what you were mentioning, Michael. So I was a vice president at 20th Century Fox, where I ran the Die Hard franchise, the Wolverine franchise, 24 movie, a bunch of stuff like that. I was an executive vice president at DreamWorks for Kurtzman Orsi, which is the era of Transformers 1 and 2, Eagle Eye, the Proposal, Punch, like The Island, like that era. And I did that, and this is where the story ends. So after starting as an engineer and then getting into engineering film and then getting into film, I had a moment around Die Hard 5 where I thought, you know what? The movies that I'm working on here, they're all sequels. They're all prequels. They're spin-offs. There's no real great storytelling going on. There's just huge media conglomerates named News Corp and Disney, and Sony, the Avengers 14 and Die Hard 19 and stuff like that. And I was like, this is not a very inspiring way to spend my life. Just, hey man, I'm the guy making the next Wolverine movie. And then after that, we'll make another one. And the only other thing I knew how to do, Michael, was engineering. So I thought, okay, let me leave this, which my friends thought I was crazy. They're like, you have this great job at 20th Century Fox. Why would you leave? And I went to find problems that I could solve with an engineering brain. And I did 2 startups, raised about $3 million for each. Both failed. I was so depressed. I was so ashamed. I was embarrassed to bump into friends of mine because they're like, hey, Steven, how's it going with your startup? I'm like, terrible. Like, you're probably going to close it down. Really not well, you want to hide. You go to the dry cleaners, you bump into a friend. You're like, oh God, no, he's going to ask me how it's going. And in the course of doing that, and this is the end of the story, I realized I learned a lot about being around really high performers. They were able to sustainably do that and how they did that. And that is why I founded the company I run now, the Sukha company. Sukha is Sanskrit for happiness. It's why I lecture on flow states and healthy high productivity, and share a lot of those lessons for free. Most of our audience that use Sukha, they are developers, engineers, UI UX designers, and authors. All people who need to focus, and they can move the world forward if they learn how to focus really well. So that is why I'm here, what I have to share.
Wonderful, wonderful. And thanks for sharing that perspective, because in that story, I'm asking myself, was there a defining moment when you realized that you aren't just chasing success, though success actually is in your portfolio as it is, but now it's time to actually find the meaning of this success?
Oh, wait, that is a fantastic question. Yes, I'll tell you, when I was working my way up in film, I was very focused on, okay, I want to be a senior executive at a studio, chairman of a studio, or win an Academy Award, or something that was very outwardly like, look how well I did, right? And it was really after I left Fox that I realized a lot of what I had done at the studio didn't really change the world. It didn't really make it much better. You can go see Die Hard 5, and 2 hours later, your life is the same. Let's be honest, okay? Even though you slave to make these movies, it's really hard. At the end of the day, it's kind of like cotton candy that just evaporates in your mouth, right? So I think the biggest revelation for me around meaning was, I thought, what is it that I have learned that would help the most people? Because it's not necessarily film stuff, and it's not necessarily teaching what I knew about engineering. It was really like friends of mine created Siri, created Bing, like created a Facebook marketplace and, Facebook work and stuff like that, and have done amazing things. And I've been around like the screenwriters of some of the top movies you've ever seen. I've worked with Jim Cameron. I've worked with Steven Spielberg. I've worked for Steven Spielberg, right? I've done all these things. And I was like, man, there's some great lessons there in how they do the great thing. That if I were coming up, if I were 21 right now or 25 and like starting to do a startup, I would love to learn these lessons now as opposed to later. So that was really my big thing of like, you know what? I'm going to find audiences that can benefit from this, see if they're open and they want to learn. And if so, share this for free. And I'm so honored you would have me on here.
Yeah, I'm not just letting you go easily, because I have a lot of questions before we start talking about Sukha. You've lived across identities, and it's a blessing. Not so many people are actually able to live and immerse themselves deep into these, careers like engineer, storyteller, founder, a VP who is making decision if this movie is gonna get a budget or not. How do you define yourself today beyond this?
I define myself. Well, one thing that I don't know if you know, I'm going to have my first child 2 weeks from Wednesday.
Wow.
I know. Wow. For someone
is it like a trend in West Coast for achieved people to start a family in future?
I would say it's crazy, and it is so tangible. Like Lauren, my dad was over here right before the podcast. My father came over and he was like talking to us about raising children and stuff. It's an amazing moment in my life. So I realized
congratulations, man.
Thank you. I'm so happy. So thank you. It's great. It was great to share this with you and your audience. So
thank you.
I realized in my excitement around having a child that I've started thinking a lot about, what is it that I've given? Do you have kids?
Yeah, I have children.
Okay, you have two. So there's another generation that is going to inherit the world that you're creating, right? You're affecting a world. Absolutely. You're going to hand over and go, here, kids, this is what I did with your world, right? And I've been thinking about that.
Yeah.
So that for me was like really revelatory, saying, you know what? I want people to have access to the ways of thinking that my friends think when they created Siri, when they created Bing, when they created like some of these sites that you go, wow, that really moved things forward. So what I do now, I mean, I think you probably mentioned it a little bit in the introduction, is when you mentioned the Sukha company, studied a lot on flow states, which is that concentrated state where you can do more and feel energized, right? And we made a website, a web app that basically pulls together the pieces you need to get there. I think it's the most meaningful thing I've ever done. I think it has changed more people's lives than any movie I've worked on or any stuff. I'll give you an example. So there is a guy that I saw, a member in this community, and I'd see him in the website, usually nights and weekends, right? Nice guy, Roy King, every now and then we chat in the group chat. This spring, he posted in the group chat, because every time you finish something, you have the option of just sharing it to inspire other people. Like, oh, hey, I launched my new website, and then people can click on it and see, right? So he posted in the group chat, finished his dissertation. And people were like, hey, Roy, that seems like a pretty, big one. You just sort of quietly dropped, like, finish your dissertation. And he laughed. And said, I am a assistant vice principal at this high school in Missouri during the day. But at night, I've been working on my PhD in engineering. And he said, I know that I have this like 60 to 90 minutes at the end of the school day before, my family needs me. So I have to be really focused. In that time, I need to make the most of those 60 to 90 minutes. And then I have a little time on the weekends. He said, so that's what I've been doing in Sukha, is like getting into flow, doing my engineering work. He said, but don't get excited, because I still have to defend my dissertation. There's another step where you have to go in front of the panel, and they ask you questions, or just, all right. So he said, that's like 2 weeks from Monday. That's like the real date. What was really interesting is the weekend leading up to that Monday, a number of people in the group chat that I know, I run the platform, I know they do not know him. They're in Japan, they're in South America, they're in Africa, or they posted really nice things like, hey, Roy, good luck on Monday. You got this, buddy, this sort of stuff. And on Monday, nothing from Roy. And someone finally posted, hey, anyone talk to Roy? Like, did it go okay? Did you hear anything? Tuesday morning, Roy logged in and he posted, you may now call me Dr. King. And people went nuts.
What?
That is why I do what I do, so that you can overcome the distractions, get into flow, like do the thing. Like, I've got a day job, I have kids, I have 90 minutes to study my engineering work to get my PhD, and he did it. And I can't even tell you how proud I am that he's part of our community, because he's doing the thing. Not talking about it like most people do. He's doing the thing.
Yeah. That's quite something. That's quite something. And I can relate. Yeah. I mean, when I read about some of the testimonials on Sukha website, I saw a couple of things that really I could resonate with, because our founder and CEO at Africa Stocking, who is an MIT graduate, we had an earlier, first or the second podcast, and I asked him what is the secret, because he's one of the smartest guy in Kenya, and he said, I learned how to separate the noise from the signal and focus on the signal. And it's the same thing, like you get that flow and focus on what is important. And what an honor to have an expert, someone who is actually implemented, even to help those people who have not recognized it. But before we go into that detail,
can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. When you have something meaningful to do, some knowledge work where you need to do that, what is the hardest part? What distracts you, or how do you procrastinate, or what's the hard thing about doing that thing that's going to move your life forward?
That's a good question. So one of the key things is that for me, I love music, which is, I don't know if
music helps you.
Default. Yeah. So one of the key things, I'm easily distracted. So I'm always on music. And when I'm on music, the flow is always there. Once I get off the music, I don't know how to ignore anything else that is happening around me.
That is fascinating. Okay, so when you're not listening to the right music, what are the things that distract you? Like, is it phone-based? Is it browser-based? Like, what's the thing that distracts you?
No, I mean, for me, it's mostly people, because you always find me around people. I've been running community, and even, in a day-to-day, I'm always curious about people. So if people are talking about something, I would like to know what is it, and even contribute or even ask questions. social media, you say a bit, but it's not like social media. Social media. I will not say I'm an avid spend of time watching social media. It's
Right.
just that I might get a call or maybe a text might get in, and then I'm like, oh, what's happening on X or what is happening on TikTok? And I'll spend like 20 minutes there.
Yes. It's never
So,
5
so
minutes.
it's never 5 minutes because, of course, a lot of things are happening all over the world. Quite interesting. But people are the one who can actually make me spend 3 hours because I love to be curious about people.
Yes.
I love to know how people think. I love to know what is going on with people.
This is okay. I love that music is so helpful for you. So I know that some part of your audience knows what a flow state is and they've experienced it. It sounds like you've experienced that too, and so have I, right? Is it fair if for 60 seconds I talk about what is a flow state so that everyone listening knows what we're talking about? Is that okay?
For sure. Though
Okay.
we could have gotten there.
Okay,
Go
good.
ahead.
Okay. So for those who have maybe heard about flow states, I know it's very popular in the zeitgeist now. Like people are talking about this. It's a way of kind of like hacking your brain, hacking your day. So here's the deal. This is what you need to know. There was a Hungarian-American psychologist, this guy, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, and he had a thesis. He said, you talk to high performers in different disciplines, like athletes and artists and scientists and inventors. He said, they go into these concentrated states where they do the thing that makes them famous, the thing that, changes the world. And they all talk about those states in a very similar way. He's like, what's up with that? Right? So sort of like, Prometheus from mythology that wanted to go and steal fire from the gods and bring it down to everybody, right? So he did this research, talking to all these people going, tell me, how do you do this thing? Whether you're Michael Jordan or Picasso or, Steve Jobs, or whatever, right? And at the end of his research, he wrote a book called Flow. It is the seminal work on this. It is from whence we get the term flow state. And he said the greatest thing. He said, I chose this word because it was the most beautiful metaphor for what I found. We are all on a river paddling to move ourselves forward. But if you align your boat with the current, it carries you. It magnifies your efforts. You go further and faster. And that is what these high performers have figured out how to do, and do it consistently. And in the book, he said, let me tell you about this flow state that he named, right? He said, it has some characteristics. You lose track of time. You are deep in the work and you're doing your best work. You do it more quickly than you thought possible. You don't get distracted with random things because you're actually in it, right? And he said, at the end of it, you actually feel uplifted, like energized, as opposed to depleted, like, oh God, I worked so hard today. You have this feeling of like joy, of like being in the control of your day. And he said, listen, a lot of people I interviewed have their own names for this. It's like flow state is not the only name. Like he talked about Michael Jordan, the basketball player. And he said, Jordan has that famous quote, when I'm in the zone, it's just me and the ball. In other words, there are no spectators, there are no defenders, there's no scoreboard. In those moments of flow, it's really just about, can I control this ball to go where it needs to go? And this is the guy who did stuff 30 years ago. It's still on highlight reels that we watch today, right? And there's another great quote by Picasso where he said, I was busy doing this and I stayed up all night. I lost track of time. I forgot to eat. I didn't pee. And by the way, I think I finished Guernica, and it's that sense of being like lost in it where it lifts you up and you go, man, I did some great work. I did it more quickly than I thought. And like, I don't feel drained. I feel up. So this is why flow states are becoming much more, there's much more awareness in the public consciousness about this, because high performers, it's kind of one of their things. And that is one of the things when I was a young engineer, I wish someone had taught me, because I came up in a culture where the badge of honor as an engineer, as a developer, was, oh, I was up all night coding and, in the wee hours of the night and just like, we're all in this together, the engineers. And I realized later, the code that I would write, I would stay up until 4 a.m. But the code I would write would very often have to be refactored or optimized. It wasn't my best work. And my best work was actually usually if I got some sleep and I worked in a flow state in the morning. And that changed my entire day around. You were about to say something in a second. I cut you off. Sorry. What were you going to say?
No worries. I mean, you've really given me some insight on why when I DJ, I also DJ. I always
see, you love music
for 5 hours. Yeah. But I want
you
to
get
know.
lost in the flow, right?
I can DJ for like, I've ever DJed for like 12 hours straight. And I was feeling like, what? It's going to keep going.
Yeah.
I had to sleep.
It's just like riding that wave, right?
Yeah. And I know we'll delve more into, some of these aspects, but I want to take one step at a time.
Yes.
And,
okay.
and
Ready.
given your experience I want to know, in your experience in film, tech, and entrepreneurship, what patterns have you seen in high performance or high performers?
I'll tell you 2 things. One is reinforcing the obvious, and one is maybe a little more surprising. Okay. So in the reinforcing the obvious, the pattern that I've seen and why I do what I do now with the Sukha company is that it is about working smarter. It is about self-awareness. And I'll give you an example or 2 of that, which is, yes, once you learn about a flow state and you feel uplifted, you get more done, like that's a great thing, right? That's serious. You can become self-aware about what does that. Now, here's an interesting thing is part of self-awareness is understanding your chronotype. And chronotype is the concept that there are certain times of day, chronos, that you are more adept at certain kinds of things. And the example I gave you before, where I was like, oh, I bought into the San Francisco culture of we have to code all night because that's what engineers do. It's actually, I realized, not my chronotype. I am really good. If I get up in the morning, I do yoga or go to the gym for an hour, and then I have like 3 or 4 hours where I do my best work of the day. And that is simply chronotype. I'll tell you a funny story from film, and then we'll move on, which is the first time I saw someone who was really self-aware was one of the top screenwriters in Hollywood. The guy's name is Ron Bass. He wrote My Best Friend's Wedding and Rain Man and like movies that won Academy Awards and this whole thing, right? So he's making $1 to $2 million a script.
Yeah.
So Ron Bass, when I was a young Turk coming up in Hollywood, he was famous or infamous. He would not talk to his family in the morning. He would get up and not say hello to his wife or his kids. And he told his family, listen, I'm not going to be the dad who's like, hey, who wants pancakes? Did you do your homework? Can I give you a ride to school? He's like, I can't be that dad because when I start talking to in the morning, I can't hear my characters' voices in my head anymore. And, this is a guy who gets paid $1-2 million a script to write the words like Julia Roberts, Tom Cruise, like, they say yes to playing. And, his family was like, Dad, you go make $2 million a script. We're fine. We can make the pancakes. You do that. And it was really interesting because he said in the afternoon, I can book studio meetings. We can do notes. I can meet with other writers. I can, collaborative stuff. I'm great in the afternoon. But I have to guard this time as sacred time for me to write the characters that are my business, right? So that level of self-awareness, that was the first time I met someone who was so self-aware to go, let me tell you exactly how I perform at this $2 million a script level, right? And I offer that as another thought, which is free. You don't need my app, anybody's app. You don't need anything to figure out your prototype. You can just take a piece of paper, draw some lines on it. So you have like Monday through Friday, morning and afternoon. For a week or 2 weeks if you want, just roughly jot down, what did you work on? How did you feel? Oh, Tuesday morning, I wrote blog posts for my blog. How did you feel? Smiley face. Oh, Thursday afternoon, I was fixing bugs and writing new features for the app. How'd you feel? And I'm going to tell you, If you look at that after a week or two, you will see your pattern staring you in the face. It is interesting when you go, oh my God, that's why I do my quality flow in the morning after yoga. It's just, it was so obvious to me. So you asked me about things I learned. So one of them is that level of self-awareness, knowing your chronotype. We can talk about music some more later if you want. Understanding how to, have healthy hyper productivity is really great. Now, here's the one that would have been very surprising to me if you'd told me this in my 20s. So if you had asked me and my friends who are all, junior executives, agents in Hollywood, sort of thing, who are going to be the filmmakers, the top writers, the top directors, in 10, 20 years, when we hit 40, we would have listed a certain set of people. Yeah. Really high talent. I'm going to tell you this. Now that it is 20 years later, the ones who are really there are not the ones who are the most talented. They're the ones who are the most tenacious. I live in Austin, Texas now. I left LA and my wife and I live here. And recently was the Austin Film Festival, where a bunch of, old friends from my film days come to town with their movies and their TV shows and stuff, right? So I always get some calls and some text messages. Hey, you want to come to my premiere? Like that sort of thing. It's fun. And I'll tell you, the ones who had the premieres this year, they were not the ones that, if you'd asked me like 15 years ago, are they the most talented people? No, they weren't. But they were the ones who could take someone saying no and use it as an opportunity to get better. Whereas some of the really talented ones would hear no and they would take it as a personal judgment, like, oh, see, I'm not really any good as a writer. I should go do something else. I'll go be a real estate agent. You know what I mean? And that is something I'm talking about children. That is absolutely something I'm going to tell my son and daughter, which is like, tell you what, whatever it is you do, the first like 5 or 10 things you do in that genre are going to be bad. I'm just the first 5 screenplays you're going to write, the first 5 apps you create, they're going to be bad. But look at each one and figure out what you can learn, because tenacity is how you're going to win. It's not, Picasso painted Guernica when he was 5 years old. He's, you know what I mean? It's not Michael Jordan not practicing. It is, I'm going to be great at this. Tell me no, because when you tell me no, that tells me how I can get better.
Interesting.
Long answer. You asked for it.
No, I mean it's something that actually makes me even record these stories for Impact Masters across the world, because I want this to go on record 50 years from now, and people could listen and learn 1 or 2 things and not make the same mistakes and get ahead of life.
Yes.
Whatever life will be in 50 years. So in visual effects, especially Independence Day, did you feel flow before you had a language for it?
Nope. No. I'll tell you that when I did Independence Day, I will tell you it was one of the hardest work experiences I ever had. And I'll tell you why. When we started that movie, Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin, who were directing, writing, producing, they had just come off Stargate. So 20th Century Fox, which made Independence Day, which coincidentally years later, I was an executive at 20th Century Fox, but at this time I was the visual effects guy, right? So they viewed us as this like little science fiction B movie, right? The budget was so tight, the schedule was so tight, and they treated us like they hated us. Like you and I could sit here and go like, Michael, we need to have more pencils. You're like, I filled out 3 forms for Fox to send us a pencil. They won't send us pencils. I don't know what to do. It was really, really, really bad. And we, at a certain point, were working about 120 hours a week. Not exaggerating. 120 hours at work, where you were like napping at your desk, and then you would have like something come in, you would go screen it in the screening room, you'd nap for 15 minutes, and then you'd have to go somewhere else, right? I was so tired one night when I was coming home to my condo, I accidentally drove my car into the wall of the condo. I was backing up and I fell asleep backing up. That's how tired I was, right? So after that happened, we got an RV, like a recreational vehicle, and we hired an intern, and none of us drove. We would just have him drive us around, and we would sleep while we were driving from place to place on the movie. It was crazy, right? So that was not an experience of being in flow. That was really unhealthy productivity. And man, if I could go back and share some of what I know now with my friends that I did the movie with, how different that experience would have been about managing that kind of pressure, but doing it in a way in which you're like, you know what? If I really focus on this right now, I can do this in a contained way and actually get some sleep, or, you know, eat on a regular schedule or something. So yeah, oof, hard. I wish I knew it then. I did not know it then.
20 hours is crazy, man. It's like 3 times the hours that people put in on a normal day.
One of the worst work experiences, other than the fact I really liked the people I worked with, right? Other than that,
yeah,
there were some days, because we were there 7 days a week. There were some days you just didn't know what day it was. You're like, is this Tuesday or Saturday? I have no idea. I've been here for weeks on end.
So, I mean, if someone watches 1 hour or 2 hour movie or even 4 hour movie,
yeah,
they should understand there's a whole team. You know, and I'm a fan of saying, I used to watch the numbers that come after the credits. After
the credits. Sure. Yeah.
Just to acknowledge the work that goes into a single movie. And now I can actually attest to it. Like, okay, if you have the time, please take some time. Appreciate the people who have put in work, because there's so much that goes behind the scenes.
It's true. And yes. Okay. What would you like to talk about next?
Go ahead. Yeah. So in
I was just gonna say,
engineering
one
teams,
of the fun things is if you do read the credits and you are looking at a movie that's like 10 years old or 15 years old, you start to see the names of people who are now directors, who are now writers, back when they were juniors and they were just working on the film, trying to, you know, do something. It's kind of fun when I watch a movie that's like, 10, 20 years old. You go, oh my God, that's when they were just like this junior little production assistant.
Yeah. That's kind of fascinating for people who actually think that they don't have it now, or they are getting frustrated in what they do. That would go a long way to really reassure them.
Yeah.
But let's talk about engineering a bit. In these engineering teams, flow for them is fragile, for sure.
Yes.
But one thing that is really, I would like to know here, what do we misunderstand most about protecting deep focus? Because also with engineering, when you talk about engineering, it's like there's so many facets of engineering that goes into it. Some of it not engineering, it might be creative, designer, and whatnot. But what do we misunderstand about protecting deep focus?
Okay. It is a fantastic question. Obviously, there are a lot of engineers that are in Sukha, so I talk with other engineers a lot. And the number one thing is this. If you are part of an engineering team, you have an engineering manager, or even your organization, where there's a rhythm of having meetings all day long, it is impossible to do deep work in the 14 minutes between when this Zoom ends and when I have my next Zoom. You know, like, oh, we have stand up at 10, but then we have another thing, and then we have a department meeting, right? So there's a lot of research, right? Mihai Csikszentmihalyi wrote this amazing book and goes, I found this thing, this flow state that's really cool, right? And then since then, it's that standing on the shoulders of giants. There have been people who've done amazing research, the Kotlers and Newports, you know, on different aspects of this. One of the research shows it takes 15 to 23 minutes to get into flow. You know, you don't sit down and go, snap my fingers, I'm in flow now, I'm in this deep state. Your brain has to drop into it. And there are things we can talk about, things that help you get in, like music, right? If you are in flow and you get interrupted, you know, your engineering manager says, hey, can you send me the so-and-so report, or look at this thing with me? When you get interrupted, it takes another 15 to 23 minutes to get back in, right? So what does that mean? What that means is you have to really have sacred time that's set aside to do deep work. Now, here's the thing. If you are an individual contributor, if you're an engineer, or you're a manager of engineers, right? There is a simple way to think about this that makes it all very clear, which is if we're on the same team, Michael, right? There are 10 of us devs, 10 engineers on this team, and we go into our staff meeting or stand-up. And you say, okay, so I returned all my emails and, I fixed that bug and I returned my Slack messages, right? Who cares? No company has ever won because all their emails were returned, inbox 0. You don't win for that, But if we go into that stand-up and you say, hey, yesterday, you know what? I had 2 hours of time and I thought about this feature that might address this retention problem. And everyone in the stand-up sort of like looks at you and is like, wow, what you just said could change the trajectory of our company. That's really clear. Suddenly you're not rewarding people for like replying to all the Slack messages and, being in teams and And then you say, well, in order for me to do this, I need 15 or 23 minutes to get in. And then I need the time to actually do the thing. So you need like an hour or two of time block. So I'll tell you something I've done in 2 of my companies, which is we had a conversation about chronotype. Like, hey, when you guys work best? For a number of us in the last 2 companies, mornings were really good. A bunch of people, not myself, but a bunch of people had kids. And they're like, once the kids are gone to school, I have that clarity of thought in the morning that's way better than the late afternoon. So what we did, this is going to sound crazy, is we blocked flow time from 9 to 11 in the morning. And we had an agreement among ourselves to say, hey, don't set client meetings between 9 and 11. Let's not Slack each other looking for, funny memes or little jokes we're sharing. Let's not distract each other. Let's have that time be the time when you're going to think deeply and do some actual work, coding work, right? Not every day you're going to have the idea that changes the world.
Yeah.
But you're only going to have the idea that changes the world if you have that time available. So that one day a week or that one day a month, you go, you know what I want to mock up? I think I could build a quick prototype of this thing and I could show it in stand-up. And then everyone goes, oh my God, Michael, like, where did that come from? You're like, I was in flow yesterday. And I just thought this, right? So that, to answer your question, having that time block is the most important thing I've found to actually getting into flow. And it's the hardest thing because so often everyone on your team is just, sending funny GIFs back and forth in Slack and, asking who's got the TPS report, stuff like that, right? And ultimately, if you want to be on a team that's just social, good, do that. You're probably not going to do great work. You're going to get a paycheck for a while until AI eats your job, right? But you're not going to do the thing and people go, oh my God, how did you do that? And I think that's hopefully as this awareness of what it is humans still do better than AI, especially for engineers, it becomes more clear that flow time, focus time, deep work time is where the humans still do the kind of creativity that LLMs as coding assistants can't do. Yeah.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. So one of the key things that also I would like to get into now, finally, people have heard Sukha. Now we're getting into it like real deep.
Okay.
And the first question here would be, what personal friction led you to build Sukha? Is it burnout? Is it fragmentation or something deeper?
What personal frustration did I have that made me want to do this?
The personal friction.
Yeah, sure.
Or frustration. Yeah.
When we were talking earlier and I asked you what distracted you, I will tell you, I am very susceptible to distraction. And I'll give you an example. I can be coding and for some reason the build keeps failing and it's really hard to debug it, right? Or maybe I'm writing a blog post for our blog that day and I read the first couple of paragraphs, and they're not really great, and I know I have to rewrite them, and I'm sort of frustrated, right? I'm going to tell you this. My muscle memory, without even thinking, my hand will reach for my phone. And it'll say, oh, let's check the WhatsApp and see if, Eric wrote back from Paris, or, let's see if Dad said something. I'll just quickly go into my email and see. And I'm telling you, it is so amazing how well trained we are that every little sound and notification and push are so beautifully done, so that when I have that hard moment, my brain goes, oh, you want some instant dopamine? Right here, pick up your phone. And like you and I were laughing, I pick up my phone to check WhatsApp for a minute. It's never a minute. You watch, I was watching a video about a React component that I wanted to understand, that someone had made a good video about, right? And at the end of that 3-minute, 40-second video, there were some little suggestions that were perfect for me. YouTube knows me so well. Each one of those, I'm like, oh, I would love to learn about, the avionics in the A380,
Yeah.
Oh, I would love to learn how to make salmon with crispy skin. It's insane how good it is, right? So to be very vulnerable, that was holding me back in some parts of my life, where I would have a day where I'm like, I could have been done earlier. And man, they got me. They won. The distractions won, mainly from apps, right?
Yeah.
YouTube on my YouTube in a browser, or some apps on my phone. So I'll tell you, this is going to sound so simple and so ridiculous, but it works. So when we were designing Sukha, we're like, how do we take all of this research people have done and just make it super simple? It's just like a play button. I just wanted a website where I didn't have to think. In the morning, I just hit the play button. The music started playing. My distractions were blocked, all right? So when you click the play button, when I click the play button, a little QR code comes up in the middle of the screen. I can tap it with my phone, put my phone down. If I am working and I pick up my phone, my smart assistant, my little, AI assistant in Sukha says, hey, Steven, is your phone helping you? Is it? And it's just like having a friend sitting next to you going like, hey man, do you want to be done today or not? Come on, right? And it gives me that one moment to say, okay, who do I want to be? Do I want to be the guy who's done, or do I want to be the guy who's grumpy telling Laura, oh, after dinner I have to come back and do some work because I didn't finish? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it was the same thing with websites. We made a free Chrome extension people can have. It gives you a list of suggested sites. You can toggle them on or off that probably distract you, like everything from YouTube to ESPN to Etsy to Amazon, whatever, right? You can add your own websites. And if you open it up while you're working, you get a little modal that just says, hey, it seems like this is a distraction. And you can dismiss it if you want. Like if you're like, no, I absolutely need to be in YouTube to watch this video, great, you can dismiss it. But you can also close the window if you're like, you know what? I don't need to be in Amazon right now. I don't need to be in, ESPN.com or whatever. So that is, that was one of my biggest problems. I'm just easily distracted. And that's how I solved it. Was just like, just help me, just nudge me to stay off my phone, nudge me to stay off those websites until I'm done with my work. And then maybe I'll screw around for half an hour, but I feel good because I'm done,
Yeah. I mean, it looks like you really had a peep on my research, because my next question was, and this can give you an opportunity to add more on what you've mentioned. You mentioned that social media takes away the focus, and most tools actually nowadays are created to create pressure. How does Sukha create calm productivity?
Okay, so I'm going to answer your question, but first I'm going to answer this question, which is why? Why should we care? And when we talked about, Mihai, the Hungarian guy, he had a thesis about focus, right? Mm-hmm. I also have a thesis. I believe that we all have something great inside us. Mm-hmm. And the question of this lifetime is, are you going to get it out or not? And if you look at the business models of the trillion-dollar companies on the stock market, their business model is steal your life, period. Full stop. So when you 10 years ago heard, Mark Zuckerberg or Evan or, Elon, these guys talk, Zuckerberg would say, oh, we made Facebook so that grandmothers, can see their grandchildren's videos and garbage like that, right? That's not why he made Facebook. So
For sure.
now the way the world has evolved, they're not embarrassed. Like you talk to the guys running Snapchat, X, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, they straight up in their quarterly stock filings, they say, listen, these are the techniques that we are using to steal everyone's life. Next quarter, here's some new techniques that we're going to try to steal more, because the more we steal, the more shareholder value we create. And shareholder value is code for how much of people's lives we can steal. Because basically their model is Mark Zuckerberg calls you up and goes, Michael, can I have your life? Because I want to sell it to these advertisers and I'm going to keep the money. But I will give you some dancing cat videos. Is that cool? You want some dancing cat videos in return for your life, right? And it sounds ridiculous to say it that way, but that is exactly what it is. And when you think about why, right? If you believe you have something great inside you, which I do believe that we all do, then there is a tug of war for your life. And on one side, there are the trillion-dollar companies with the money to buy the best engineers, the best UI UX designers, the best behavioral economists to make sure you do nothing. And the other side of that rope is you alone. You better have allies, because they sure do.
Wow.
So that's why we created Sukha.
Interesting.
That's it.
Sukha means, in my research, happiness through self-fulfillment.
That is correct.
How do you translate that philosophy into software?
Okay, let me tell you why we named it this word, because it is not a very traditional word, right? Okay, so we had an early version, like a beta version of this running, using a working title. And Laura, wife that we were talking about, right, who's pregnant right now, she and we met in yoga. That's how I met her. She was doing yoga on the mat to my left in Manhattan, in New York. So when we were getting married a couple years ago, we went to Bali, which is a great place to go when you want to just do yoga on the beach, with your new wife and all that, right? So we were flying there, and I said to Laura, I said, the next 2 weeks, no one from the office is going to bother me, because they know I'm on my honeymoon. They're like, leave Steven alone, let him have his honeymoon, right? So I said, maybe this is an amazing time when the universe is going to speak to me, and it's going to give me a really cool name for this thing, because all the names I've been thinking of, like flow state app, distraction blocker, I'm like, they're awful names. They're really, really, really bad, right? And it said, like the way Amazon is not called like shopping center, like Nike. Nike's a cool word when you think of winged goddess of victory for a shoe company. It's not called like the shoe company, right? So I was like, I want to have some name that's like interesting like that. So she said, great. So we landed in Bali, and I said to her, do you mind, something that might fuel my unconscious is, do you mind if I speak to 2 or 3 of our early like beta testers and just ask them what do they like about it? Because maybe that'll be like, over the next 10 days, 12 days, that'll bubble up. She's like, I'm going to the pool, but you can have fun on your Zoom, right? I'll see you at dinner. So I posted, in the group chat, I was like, hey, who has 5-10 minutes? 3 people said yes. And I asked that question, just, hey, Michael, what's your favorite thing? Do you love the music, the distraction blocker, the AI assistant? Like, what is it? The third guy, we did, like 8 minutes. And I went into the wrap up, where you're like, Michael, I promised 10 minutes. I want to be respectful of your time. I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much, right? And the guy stopped me and he said, Steven, you asked the wrong questions. And I was like, okay, guy that I don't know that well, like, what was the right question? And he said, you should have asked me why I pay you. And I was like, we charge like 30 cents a day. I don't collect a paycheck. Tony and I do this for free, right? We just we charge money so we can keep the Amazon servers on and the Google servers on, right?
Yeah.
So I said, okay, but fair enough. Why do you pay me? He said, the last year or so, I have two kinds of days. At 3 o'clock, I'm playing with my kids. They're currently 2 and 4.
Yeah.
Or at 6 o'clock, I'm down to myself. Where did the day go? I was busy all day. I didn't get the thing done, and I'm frustrated. He said, I realized the difference is, did I hit play in your website before I started work that morning? So I pay you because my kids are not going to be 2 and 4 forever. And I was like, wow, you're right. That was a way better answer than I was asking you for. So I went to dinner with Laura. I was like, oh my God, I talked to this guy who is more articulate than I am about what I'm doing. This is what he said. And she's like, that's really good, right? So we're going to bed that night, like little honeymooners in our little spa robes, brushing our little teeth. And Laura looked at me and she said, you wanted the universe to speak to you. You want to have some inspiration. The universe spoke to you through that guy.
Yeah.
When we're in yoga, we hear all of these Sanskrit terms, like karma and your dharma, your prana life force. That guy described to you Sukha. That feeling when you are in your lane, doing what you're meant to do. You're good at it. You're in control of your day. She's like, that's what you should call your company. That is why that guy is a member. So from bed in Bali, I looked up the Sukha company, the happiness company. For $14, I could buy it. And we had a name. So that is why I do it. So at 3 o'clock, you can be doing the thing you want to do. Rather at 6 o'clock, you can be want to like punch yourself in the face.
Wonderful. I mean, that's amazing.
Yes, I'm very proud of our members. They, like I told you, Roy King, who became a doctor using it, and like this guy who plays the game. Like that's why I do this. This is actually doing more good for people than any movie I worked on.
I can hear the stories are endless and they're really quite inspiring in terms of what really you're able to change in people's life.
Very lucky, yes.
Yeah. So let's get into attention and leadership a bit. And I would like to know how your relationship with attention evolved as a leader. Since you've been a leader in the executive roles where you need to turn out movies and make sure that they are really good in return of investment. And also now you are a leader in the business of entrepreneurship and helping even the most productive engineers become more productive.
Yeah, well, let's talk about leadership, because I believe obviously there are many things you need to do as a leader. And I think leadership is different than management, right? A manager is, coming by your desk, making sure the reports are done and stuff like that. A leader is leading the team somewhere, right? So let's talk about leadership. There are two big things a leader needs to do. A leader needs to declare why you're there, declare the mission, which could be, hey, we're here to learn how to cure cancer. We are here to make clean electric vehicles. We are here to make great romantic comedy movies, whatever it is. But you need to declare that this is why we are here. And the second thing you do is you declare the culture, which is, how do we treat each other? How do we treat our customers? How do we treat our competitors? If you do those two things clearly, this is why we're here and this is how we're going to operate, you attract the right people onto your team. So when I hear other, leaders frustrated with, their teams, they don't have their attention or they don't have their focus, very often the problem is in the hiring. Did you assemble the right people for this? Because I can tell you this, Michael, if I am out to cure cancer and I interview you and you're like, hey man, I watched my grandmother die of lung cancer. I don't need to see you on Tuesday afternoon to know that you are trying to move the ball down the field. Like you have a reason why you chose this company. Now, if I interview you and you've had 5 jobs in 6 years and you surf Indeed every morning to see if there's a better paying job, I would be an idiot for hiring you because you're not aligned with why we're here and how we treat each other. So I think that is really important to solve. And if you have those two questions answered wrong, there is nothing you can do to get people to focus, to have their attention, because they're not invested in why you're there. Does that make sense?
A lot of sense. And even I can hear trust plays a key role in this
Yes.
after hiring and
That's right.
for that. Yeah. So what does mindfulness look like for a developer in 2025?
For developers?
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, as you and I discussed, there are things you can do to move your life forward, and there are things you can do to give your life away. And when you start to value your life, you go, you know what? There are X number of seconds that I will be alive.
Mhm.
You start to want to do the things that only you can do. You know? Anyone can scroll TikTok all afternoon.
Yeah.
But do you want to end up the guy, 80 years old, sitting on the sofa, scrolling and double tapping and talking about, oh yeah, I could have written that app. Oh, I could have, done that thing. I could have written that book. I could have made that YouTube channel. No, you don't want to be that guy, right? And no one wants to be around that guy. No one wants to be around the guy who's always talking about like, well, I could have, created that company. I had that idea. It's like, doesn't matter, dude, So hopefully you come to a point in your life as an engineer or as anyone who has knowledge work to do, where you say, you know what? There is something great inside me, and I refuse to die with it still inside. And then you look for the allies that help you do that. The tools.
Wonderful. Yeah. So when I think about that, I can see so many aspects of it. And I think there's what you talked about flow earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like, in this point, I would like to know, can flow improve strategic decision or only execution?
So you mean if you're in a flow state, can you use that energy and focus for strategy as opposed to just execution?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll tell you this. Flow states are, as you know, even from being a DJ, flow states are a wonderful tool when you need to go deep into something, right? So it could be devising strategy. It could be executing. It could be coding. It could be doing, work in Figma. It could be lots of different things. I'll tell you what it's generally not is it's really hard to be in flow if you're in sales or business development, because that's just like a frenetic wheel of calls and Zooms and Teams. You know what I mean? Like it's just a churn. It's very hard if you're in the C-suite of a large company, because that means most of your day is really dealing with shareholders, dealing with the board, dealing with governance issues. You know what I mean? You're not doing the knowledge work anymore. So flow is really, if you are, like you said, you're devising strategy, you're doing deep thinking, you're doing knowledge work, you're coding, you're designing, you're writing. Like that's where it's magical.
Wonderful. So let's get into your legacy and practices now that you have served and you are really continuing now to build for purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And the question would be around after Hollywood and startups. How do you measure a day well lived?
Oh man. I'm very influenced by people. So in my life right now, where I have days that I know that I've helped someone, whether it's Laura, whether it's my dad, whether it's a friend, whether it's a teammate in Sukha, whether it's a member of Sukha who does something, that affects me more than anything. When someone says, thank you, like you affected me today. That's really probably the best measure. That's how I decide where to put my time. Like, is this going to affect the world or is this just meaningless?
Wonderful. And I know as every other person, you have temptation now and then. I would like to know what personal rituals that keep you grounded.
What? Sorry, what?
What personal rituals that keep you grounded?
Oh, keep me grounded. Straight up, number one thing, without anything close. Yoga. Every
Wow.
single day. If I am not on a plane or sick, I go to yoga. I was at yoga this morning at 6 a.m. I will be there tomorrow. The days that I do yoga, Laura, my wife, can tell. If I have ever skipped a day, she's like, I can tell your energy is not where it normally is. There is something about that mixing of the physical and the spiritual that just is, it brings me incredible clarity. You know, it's really, you can't, when you are balancing in a really hard posture and your muscles are straining, you're trying to do this thing beautifully and do it well, it is very hard to be thinking about random garbage. It just clears your mind for a while. And then, you know, at the end, you're drenched in sweat. You have done a great workout, but you also feel like someone has just like made you taller and straighter and more clear. That is by far, yoga. And you know, I'll tell you this.
Yes.
I did not always do yoga. Before Laura, I dated Allison, who's actually a good friend of mine and Laura's now. She was the director of marketing for a very large chain called Yoga Works. Mm-hmm. When we were dating, she gave me a mat and she gave me a class card with some, you know, punches you can get in it to go do yoga, like 8 or 12 classes or something. Yeah. And I tried it. Like a good boyfriend, I tried yoga. This is probably 12, 13 years ago.
Yeah.
After I did those 8 or 10 classes, I didn't wake up the next morning thinking, oh, I can't wait to go. And I told her this. I said, you know, I tried it. I appreciate it. I'm a good boyfriend. It's not for me. And Michael, about 2 years later, I was randomly in India in a forest. And there was a guy who taught yoga there to myself and this one other German guy, just randomly was there. And I understood what Allison had tried to give me like 2 or 3 years earlier. I wanted to call her and say, I get it. I wasn't ready. I just wasn't ready when she gave it to me. But after that, daily yoga practice. I just had to be ready.
You know, I have so many questions around yoga.
Have you ever practiced?
But I'll ask two. So number one, I've never known that yoga is for men. Let's get that out of the way.
Okay.
Two is, I would like to know the difference between the yoga class that you went in, you know, I'm sure it was not a forest, and the one that you experienced in a forest, to be able to really experience it fully and get the buy-in.
You know, I don't know how different the yoga class was. What I know is how different I was. There came a time when I was ready.
Oh,
you know, maybe if I had taken the Yoga Works classes 2 years later, maybe they would have had the effects on me. All I know is I realized in that moment after I took that second class that I felt something I hadn't felt before. And I realized that's what Allison was trying. That was the gift she was trying to give me, and I just didn't get it.
I see. So it was a matter of you being ready. And you know, in this podcast also, we normally like to ask our guests if they're familiar with the body, mind, and soul, which actually brings perfect balance in one's life. Because if one of those is not really in a perfect balance, and I learned this, very, interestingly, in a seminary where we used to meditate the whole day for 24 hours every month. And that was a new experience for me that changed my life in a way that until today I appreciate it, because I used to use that day. The first day was like, what is this? Why should you not talk to anyone? Why should you just be reserved and read your Bible and breviary and just go to church or chapel? But by the third meditation, which is the third month before we went for holiday, I was like, this is the best time in every month, because I can sit down and recollect for that month, take stock, you know, find my inner self, you know, repent and you know, so such, what can I do better in the coming days, and where did I go wrong, or how can I be more generous? You know, those things that actually comes from the spirit side of things. I know in this world where it's too noisy, everything is moving, everyone is always moving, but I'm sure each person actually finds how do they balance their body, mind, and soul. What's yours?
How to balance my body, mind, and soul?
Yes.
I told you, like for me, when I don't do yoga, I'm not in balance. That is
Wonderful.
such an
So that's your
easiest thing for me. That is
yeah.
absolutely the most important thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe I should try yoga in the coming months to see how
If
does it
you
work.
try
I have a
yoga,
friend who
I
does
want
yoga really good. Yeah.
reach out to me after you try yoga because I would love to hear what your experience is like.
Absolutely. I'll try and do that as soon as possible. So on to our next question is that with the world of AI, which is transforming everything, including engineering, movie
Yep.
industry, everything, virtually everything,
True.
what remains inhuman?
What remains for humans?
Yeah. Or
Okay.
what remains as human? What can we call this is now
Okay.
human?
So let's talk about that. Right now, a lot of people use the words AI
Mhm.
to mean LLM, right? They've sort of conflated that LLMs are artificial intelligence, right? And
Yeah.
it is one discipline of artificial intelligence. LLMs,
Yes.
to be very clear, and you know this, but just to say this for the audience,
Yeah.
LLMs are a glorified version of Google autocomplete. They are a probabilistic engine that simply says, okay, so you said this, probably the next word or thought is this, and they can string that together. The same way when you're typing in, Gmail and it predicts the next letter is S for a plural or something, right? All these LLMs that people are excited about, they are simply weighted guesses. What is the next idea or thing? Because they've read the whole internet. They've read all the books, right? So they have a good sense
Yeah.
of like, when you say, oh, out the window, it looks very, they're like, oh, 32% chance he's going to say rainy, 15% chance he says sunny,
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of creativity in that. There is a great way to get answers to some things when it doesn't hallucinate, right? So there are a lot of jobs that are going to be gone because of LLMs, because those jobs were basically having to take patterns that were established and just apply them to the next thing, right? So you've read AI blog posts that just sound like every other blog post you've ever read because they were trained on every other blog post. You've seen the code, which is very mediocre. It accomplishes the job. Is it the way a great engineer would architect it? No. It gets the job done because it's been trained on all this open source software that's pretty mediocre, right? So you'll just keep iterating. So when you ask the question of like, what remains to be human, what I think that is now, and this may change in 3 years, 5 years, but right now it's when you are not just matching patterns, but you're breaking patterns. Creativity is saying, how do you put together those two things or three things that didn't belong together, but when they are together, they create something new, because the LLMs are going to do a better job than we are of just repeating the thing that's old.
So we are still creators, as you are meant to.
Hopefully we are. And there may come a time when creativity, we do have a great engine of creativity as opposed to an engine of pattern matching, but we don't yet.
Yeah. So the next question, which is second or that last question, is around builders. So for builders in transition, like you are at one point, what inner question should they ask themselves?
Oh, I'll tell you, if you are building something, and this is based on mistakes that I have made, right? If you're building something, be very, very focused, be obsessed with the problem. Really deeply, deeply understand the problem, because I've made this mistake in the past, and I have seen others make this mistake too frequently, is building solutions for problems that may not actually be that painful, or problems that are solved other ways. And it can be fun to build solutions, but if you're going to spend your energy and your time, build solutions to really painful problems that you understand. Those will be more successful.
Wonderful. So this is where now we do the plug. If I want to start on Sukha, where do I go? Of course, I've taken some time to share a couple of links below.
One of them is the link to Sukha, the sukha.co. But for those who will be listening to this without the video, is thesukha.co, and you'll find the website. But Stephen, take some time to share, and then I'll share the screen as you share what's wonderful with Sukha. If there's a mobile app, if there's a web app, whatever it is about Sukha.
Sure. Okay. So I appreciate you asking that. Sukha is a website. It's a web app that you run on your laptop or your desktop.
Yes.
Because that's where people do their work. No one writes their code on their cell phone. No one's doing their designs in Figma on their cell phone, right? So
yes,
Sukha is a flow state app to help you get into flow state. It has the things you need. When you sign up, there's the music, there's a way to track your tasks, there's a productivity graph so you can see how you're doing. When you opened your phone, it'll give you feedback on how to get better. There's a fun community on the left side where you can, chat with people that are also doing something with their life. And we're in the middle of building out the smart assistant, the AI assistant that'll help look at your task list and help optimize things for you. So really, it's a flow state app, and it is made for the people who want to get into a flow state, experiment and say, hey, this concentrated state where I might feel more energized and work better, let me try it. So it's free for 7 days, no credit card. If you're interested in trying this, have something to do, because you can't get into flow for 5 minutes. Like if you just hit play, you'll hear music and you're not going to experience the magic. The magic is take something you need to do and do it for an hour. And then you're going to look up and say, wow, that was amazing.
Wonderful. I would like to know if there's a discount that comes with this podcast. Maybe people will be listening or something. But if it's already, please create it, share it. I'll share it afterwards.
I will be happy. What would give me a 6-letter discount code? I will create one. What would you like it to be?
Impact Masters in Sukha.
Hey, that's long. How about just Impact Masters? Let's do that.
Okay. Impact Masters.
I will do that when people sign up to become a member. If they type in Impact Masters, we'll give them, how about 50% off? How does that sound?
That's amazing. For the first 3 months, first 1 month?
No, for life. If they sign up, 50% off for life.
Wow.
Deal?
That means $5 per month.
$5 per month for life.
Wow, that's wonderful. That's
okay. When we hang up, I'm going to go create that code.
Absolutely. I really appreciate your input, Stephen. Thank you for fun. Not just unpacking your journey, but inner architecture behind it, which is quite fascinating to share this with our audience, who are always finding ways to build impacts across the world. And it's quite fascinating to hear not only your transition, but also what you have gone through to come up with this. And for sure, this is the first podcast. And what I tell my guests that we can always have, the follow-up on different aspects now, going even deeper, and feel free to reach out. And to our listeners, before we go to our listeners, there's something I would like you maybe to do. If you had one book that you could read the rest of your life, what would be that book?
It would be The Lessons of History by Will and Ariel Durant. It's a great book about the history of human civilization.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Steven.
Yeah, this is an amazing experience. Thank you for having me. I'm very honored to be here. And I hope that some of this has been helpful for people.
To me, it has been helpful. And I'm sure if it's helpful to me, so many other people have been or will always find this quite fascinating, and they can learn something out of it. To our listeners, if today challenged how you view productivity, rewind, reflect, and apply. This has been Impact Masters and Retold podcast by Africa's Talking and Impact Masters. I am Michael Kimathi. Until next time, protect your attention, build with purpose, and be an Impact Master. And within Africa, what I see personally is a collaborative space where we can create value across multiple different sectors and across multiple different countries. And what does that require? It requires each individual to play their part. And more so than that is also for us to be able to collaborate to make sure that we are maximizing the value that exists amongst us.
A lot of founders here and a lot of developers here can attest that sometimes we build MVPs for even 4 months and 6 months, only to put it in the market and realize it's not going to work. People don't like it, it can't do anything. And then you have to build again for 6 months. Before you know it, that's 1 year.
The best gift you can give to a human being is a chance.
Yeah, exactly. A child that does not cry will die in the career.
There are too many problems in the world for us not to be the solutions to them. There are too many of us pointing fingers, looking for other people to solve for things that we know innately we have a piece of the puzzle for.
Think about the failures you've had in your life. Don't you learn more from failure than you do from success? I have.
Absolutely, that's where the biggest lessons are.
Yeah.